here. All right, this is Brian Johnson, staff writer for Finance and Commerce, and I'm pleased to be joined by local commercial real estate veteran Brent Erickson, who is winding down a long and successful career in the industry. Most recently, Erickson has served as Senior Managing Director in Newmark's Minneapolis-St. Paul office, where he provides landlord agency and tenant representation services to select clients. He has been a key element in several central business district rebranding projects, providing new identities to assets and increasing values for clients while systematically decreasing vacancies. Erickson joined Newmark in 2017. He was previously Senior Director and Executive Director of Office Properties at Cushman and Wakefield, where he began his real estate career in 1989 as a property manager. First of all, Brent, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thanks. I appreciate the introduction.
Yeah, so I touched on briefly that you're winding down your career in commercial real estate. It looks like you're about 90 to 95% retired, but still working on a few projects. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Brian. I have a couple of handful of projects that some long-term clients that I've been working with as I'm finishing up a couple of transactions. So that's really what I'm focused on, just completing a couple of transactions just to get them to the finish line.
Excellent. And how long have you worked in this business?
I started in 1989, and it was a business, Brian, I knew nothing about. A friend who I'd known for a while and was actually a neighbor also, a guy by the name of Jeff Channon, worked in property management for United Properties, and he kept telling me, "I think you should be a property manager. You'd be good at it." And I certainly appreciated the confidence that Jeff had in me. Um, it's something that has stuck with me through the time that I've been in commercial real estate, having confidence in people. But it was 1989 that a position in property management came open at United Properties, and I got the position, and that's how I started in commercial real estate, thanks to Jeff Channon.
Yeah, and before we started recording here, you mentioned that you were an education major, that you were interested in pursuing an education career initially. Tell us about that and how you transitioned to commercial real estate.
Yeah, I was an education major. My whole family were in the education world. I did my student teaching, Brian, and just decided not for me. And I was actually in the residential mortgage business when Jeff Channon, as I said, tapped me and said, "Why don't you come to United Properties as a property manager?" So in the real estate world, you need to have some finance background, and I had that through my time in the residential mortgage business. And as I said, Jeff saw something in me that said you should be a property manager, and that was the start of it.
And the rest is history, as they say. It's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it has. I've had a number of good mentors as I kind of moved through the property management world. A woman by the name of Betsy George was a great mentor. She really showed me what it was like not only to work hard, but to work the right way. She was a great mentor for that. And then a gentleman by the name of Andy Sungard, who I'd worked with for a number of years. And Andy was great at figuring out how to navigate really complex situations. So having Betsy George and Andy Sungard at another stage of my property management career was really helpful and kind of rounding me out and rounding out some of my skill sets. Um, I also had an opportunity to be a property manager at Normandale Lake Office Park, one of the more prestigious suburban office parks. And there I worked with a guy by the name of Larry Paboda. Larry was on the leasing side of the Normandale Lake Office Park buildings, and I was on the property management side. And I really learned from Larry, here's how property management, leasing, um, architects, general contractors, engineers, all these people need to work together to really provide a high level of service to the clients, which could be tenants in the building or the ownership of the building. So Larry was very important at another stage in my property management career in kind of teaching me, you know, you don't do just your job in the property management world. You're working with a lot of different types of people and a lot of different personalities. And Larry was really good at that and really was helpful in showing me here's how everybody needs to work together to make things work. So I was able to take that, and sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but I started getting assigned by United Properties to projects that needed more leasing help than just someone and coming in and fixing the operations of the building. I certainly had a skill set that was more on the marketing and leasing side than on the operations side. And I got to give credit to Mike Omas and Jeff Eaton at United Properties, who realized that I could really add some value on the leasing side. And after doing some work on the property management world, working closely with the brokers, um, Jeff and Mike said, why don't you move on over into the leasing side? And that was in kind of the late 90s when I moved into the brokerage world. And that's really when I started focusing on projects downtown. Um, so it was a number of years. I had some great mentors, some great training, and then moved into the brokerage world and started doing the leasing work that I've been doing.
Well, you mentioned downtown, and I want to ask you about downtown Minneapolis and some of the opportunities and challenges there. Obviously, COVID had a big impact, and we're seeing office vacancy rate, I think, right around 30% downtown Minneapolis. Flight to quality and obviously repurposing some of the older buildings. What do you see as the future, I guess, of that market and some of the opportunities and challenges there
Some
in
of what
downtown
I see
Minneapolis?
from the future, I'm going to base on what I've seen in the past and some of the past that I've seen, Brian, but also in the past, even before I was a part of downtown. Minneapolis has always figured out how to land on its feet through challenges. They've always figured out how to make things work. Um, and you can go back to, when, you know, everything was based on what was happening on the river from a flour milling standpoint, and all of a sudden that world went away. And what did Minneapolis then have to do? They had to make some adjustments in what was going to happen. So even going back a century, Minneapolis has always had challenges with the changing landscape, and they figured out how to make it happen. During my time downtown, there was a time when General Mills bought Pillsbury, and Pillsbury, who was a mainstay from an employee base, from an employer in downtown Minneapolis, that was going to change the whole landscape of downtown Minneapolis. It happened. Minneapolis figured out how to, do with Pillsbury going away from being a business in downtown Minneapolis, made that work. The same thing happened with IDS, the namesake for the IDS Center, that they were a large, large business and a large employer of many employees. They were going away. They were becoming American Express, and now they become Ameriprise. That was supposed to have a lot of changes in downtown Minneapolis. Minneapolis worked its way through that. So I've seen changes where with businesses, and I've seen changes with businesses and their employees that there seemed to be lots of challenges, and not that there weren't challenges, but Minneapolis figured out how to make that happen. I think Minneapolis also had challenges with what we were going to do with the Minnesota Twins. They needed a stadium. What we were going to do with the Vikings. They needed a stadium. What we were going to do with transit. And not that, it was an easy process getting two stadiums built and getting a light rail line built, but
Mhm.
it happened. Minneapolis was able to figure it out. So I trust that Minneapolis, again, will figure out how to go through this latest transition that it's going through in terms of elevated occupancy, what's happening with businesses and how are they doing downtown. It's another example of Minneapolis having challenges, But based on what's happened in the past, Minneapolis has always been able to sort its way through it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we've been down this road before, that's for
Yep.
sure. And
Yep, we have. We have. So I kind of trust in the people of Minneapolis to figure out how to land on their feet and make Minneapolis work again.
well, looking back on your career, what would you say are some of the highlights or some of the more memorable projects or deals you've worked on? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know what? A couple of them that I think have been real fun for me. I worked on Butler Square for a while when a gentleman by the name of Jim Binger, who I just respect so much, was the owner. And Jim had wanted to sell Butler Square and decided not to, and said, "Brent, what should I do?" And I kind of came up with a plan of let's start really marketing this building as being a creative building. And I think that was the first, one of the first examples of a building that said, I'm going to take advantage of the history of the building and the open ceilings and really being unique and marketing with a creative eye to it. That experience gave me the opportunity to work on the Tractor Works building in the North Loop, which was one of the first buildings that was really renovated and took advantage of what it looked like could happen in the North Loop. So the Tractor Works building is a building I've worked on since 2007, and seen a lot of transitions, seen a lot of work. But I think that was one of the first examples of taking a building and making it something different in the North Loop that helped the North Loop take off. And then recently from a big transaction, it was the renewal of U.S. Bank at U.S. Bank Core Center. That was really important, not only for U.S. Bank to renew in all the space that they had occupied, it was important for the landlord to renew U.S. Bank in all the space. It was important for a mainstay business on Nicollet Mall, because Nicollet Mall is really the main drag of Minneapolis, and it was really good for the city. So that transaction, I think, was good on a number of fronts in terms of making something really positive happen for all the parties involved, not just the landlord and the business, but the community and the city.
Do you have any thoughts on downtown St. Paul? That might not be your uh, particular area of expertise, but I know they're obviously facing challenges as well.
Man, I'm impressed with, and I forget the name of the group that's uh, the nonprofit that's buying these buildings, but for them to be buying the notes that they are, the mortgages that they are, buy the properties that they are, that's stepping up and doing something that is different and unique. Um, so I give St. Paul credit for realizing we have to do something that hasn't been done before to solve what we need to solve. I give them credit for doing that.
Yeah, I believe they recently purchased the mortgage of the U.S. Bank Center of
Right.
Madison Equity's property, and we've seen uh, uh, we've seen them step in before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You got to give them credit. It's something that hasn't happened before. So coming up with a new mousetrap, good for them.
yeah, and can you talk a little bit about some of the biggest changes you've seen in the industry from when you started back in the late 80s versus now?
I think some of the big changes really have to do with, and I'm biased being a broker, but really the value that brokers can add to a transaction. There was a time when I started that asset managers, so those are the people that represent the ownership of the building, they kind of always wanted to stay out of the picture. They wanted to, you know, I don't, I'm not going to talk to the tenants. I'm not going to talk to the brokers. I'm going to do my own thing. You brokers are on the front line doing the work that you do. I think brokers have had the discussion with landlords and with the businesses saying, hey, this is something that it's going to take all of us to solve how to create a successful lease transaction. And so to have brokers really leading the way to make that happen to me is really important. And like I said, that's one of the skills that I learned from Larry Poboda is that, think about it, Brian, when we're working on a lease transaction, we're working with property managers, we're working with tenants, we're working with a tenants broker, we're working with an architect, we're working with a general contractor, we're working with an attorney. We might be working with the building engineer. Well, lots of different work responsibilities, which are also lots of different personality styles and lots of different skill sets. The brokers are the ones that have to manage that process and keep everybody moving forward in a regular system, a regular schedule to get to a completed lease transaction, an office space built out for a company that works for them. And it's different personality styles when you're dealing with an architect who is bringing a certain level of creativity to the equation, and you're also dealing with an attorney who they are about dotting the i's and crossing the t's, and brokers have to manage all of those people that have different work responsibilities, but also different styles of work, and make sure that everybody works together to get something done. That's probably been one of the biggest conceptual changes that I've seen, is brokers managing all of that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you have any plans for retirement that you can tell us about? Do you plan to travel or anything like that?
I got a bunch of trips on the books. Later this week, I'm heading to Florida. I come back, I head to Memphis, Tennessee. I've got a daughter and her family down there. We come back, we're going to Los Angeles. I've got a son there. We come back, we're taking a ski trip to Utah. So, yeah, we got a lot of travel on the books, which we're looking forward to. Time to take advantage of that. So, looking forward to that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're going out to visit family and hitting some warmer weather destinations as well.
Yeah, not a
So
bad
it's
plan.
not a bad plan for this time of year. I have family in other parts of the country as well. I have a daughter in Maryland, and my one of my younger daughters just started grad school at down in Illinois, Eastern Illinois University. So we're planning to head out there over the holiday weekend next weekend and do a little bit of do a little bit of traveling as well. So
Always
it's
good to
always
visit family. Perfect excuse for a trip.
it is absolutely. Well, Brent, thank you for your time. Any other thoughts before I let you go? It's been an interesting conversation.
Well, I've appreciated. I've learned a lot in commercial real estate. I've worked with some really, really good people throughout my time. I've had, a great opportunity to the confidence that Jeff Channon showed in me. I've been able to use that confidence that I've seen in other people to put my education background to use, and I felt like I've contributed a lot to mentoring and training and educating a handful of brokers who are doing really great things now on their own. So it's been very, very rewarding and humbling, frankly, Brian, to see, some of the success that some of the people that I've had a hand in shaping their real estate career go on to do really great things. So I feel like I'm winding up things and can look back and feel like I've set people on a really good course. So that feels good.
Yeah, I'm sure that's rewarding and well, congratulations on a great career and enjoy your retirement, Brent. It's been good talking to you.
Appreciate it, Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I will. Thanks, Brian.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.